Hey guys, it's late night on Saturday. I didn't do a post yesterday. First time in over a month. How about that? Um, but anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about what's perceived as risk in the market. There's a lot of risk when you buy a stock, for example. You don't know what's going to happen. Um, Companies like Sears Roebuck, they go to zero. Um, a lot of biotechs, they go really high and then they get a, um, a trial or something from the government comes out. They get denied, whatever. And the stock literally can go to zero. So if you bought $100 worth and it goes to zero, well, your value is zero. That is risky in my book. I was talking to somebody about what's we're doing, and maybe he didn't understand the risk factor because when I invest with partners, I mitigate the risk and I protect their money more than as if it's mine for one. Um, but here's the reality of it. So my partners and I are never in a property that's more than 70%, 75% LTV. What that means is loan to value. So that if the real estate market has a real problem, and like it did in 2007, 2008, and some property values go down 20%, well, you're 20%, you're still even or maybe even a little ahead of the game. But I've never known any real estate to go to zero. Maybe that I think about it now. Maybe the move operations at Drexel before I got there, when the city firebombed them and they all burned down and they never got rebuilt. But just like when you buy a home, you have to get a mortgage unless you're buying cash. But you get a mortgage, and then the bank makes you buy home insurance. So, who gets paid if something happens to the house, like if it burns down? You don't get paid. The bank is the one that's protected. If you look at your insurance policy or the proof of insurance, it'll tell you that the beneficiary typically is the bank on the mortgage. And so, when you act as the bank, as an investor with Beacon Realty Investments, and we buy together an investment property, you are listed on the mortgage. You are the quote unquote bank. And therefore, if something was to happen, if I was to die and get hit by a bus, um, I've put life insurance policies on myself with the um, beneficiary as the mortgagee or mortgagor. I always get that confused, but the bank. So, say Tom, Dick, and Harry are the bank, and the house burns down. Well, if they invested $100,000 in the house and alongside with me, I don't get paid if the bank, if the house burns down. Tom, Dick, and Harry get their money back. Um, also, because of the mitigation at 70 to 75% LTV, I've gone to 80%, but still, um, it may be a little bit more risky, but in those cases, we try and compensate our partners with a higher rate of return. So when people talk about investing in real estate as more risk than the stock market, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Simply because it's a hard asset, it's not going to zero. It's insured with a homeowner's insurance policy, and the worst case scenario, this is probably the worst case, because I'm a complete moron, and which some of you may agree I am. But if I'm worse than that, and I don't do anything to the property, I don't improve the property, um, I don't do anything I say I was going to do, but I take Tom, Dick, and Harry's money and I go to Tahiti. Well, Tom, Dick, and Harry get the house. They are the bank. So if I don't fulfill my obligation, because there's a mortgage and the mortgage is recorded in the county, the bank of Tom, Dick, and Harry can foreclose on that property and they can take over the property. And at that point, they could do a couple of different things. They could renovate the property themselves. They could just sell it, or they could bring on another partner to take care of that. So um, I guess risk is all relative, and there's a certain understanding that people have or don't have, especially when they're so accustomed to investing in the stock market. Um, and I just kind of wanted to touch on that because there's a misconception with some people, um, and and that is that's my fault because I have sometimes a hard time explaining what's in my head. There's assumptions in my head that people can automatically know what I'm talking about or kind of understand things the way that I do, or my communication is not as good as it should be. So if there's ever a question of how things work, you can always give me a holler. And you could just Facebook me here. You could DM me. And I'd love to talk more, anyone individually, about investing in real estate aside, besides, excuse me, alongside with me. And we can both grow our portfolios. So have yourselves a great night.